In the heart of the city, where towering buildings cast long shadows and neon lights flickered against the cold November sky, Black Friday unfolded like an annual ritual. People flocked to the sprawling mall, drawn by the promise of jaw-dropping discounts and once-in-a-lifetime deals. The atmosphere crackled with excitement as shoppers hurriedly lined up outside stores, eager to seize the best bargains before they vanished like whispers in the wind. Among the throng of bargain hunters, Sarah, a young college student, was brimming with enthusiasm. Clutching her shopping list and navigating through the pulsating crowd, she darted from store to store, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. But amidst the chaos, a sense of unease settled in the pit of her stomach, a subtle prickling sensation that refused to fade. As dusk descended, casting a scary glow through the mall's glass facades, Sarah noticed a figure that seemed out of place. A man clad in a dark hoodie, his features obscured by shadows. He moved with an unsettling sense of purpose, weaving through the bustling masses like a specter drifting through a fog. Sarah brushed off her apprehension, attributing it to the frenzied atmosphere of the shopping extravaganza. The mall's interior buzzed with excitement, the air thick with the scent of coffee mingled with the faint aroma of new merchandise. The incessant chatter of excited shoppers echoed against the walls, punctuated by the occasional shrill laughter. Sarah found herself drawn into the whirlwind of consumerism, her initial discomfort fading into the background as she succumbed to the allure of the sales. As the night deepened, the throngs of shoppers dwindled, leaving behind a quieter, almost dark ambience. Stores began to close their shutters, signaling the end of the frenetic shopping spree. Sarah, laden with bags and weary from the day's excitement, decided to head for the exit. A sudden shiver raced down her back as she realized she was being followed. A faint rustling of footsteps, barely audible over the hum of distant voices. Glancing back, she caught a glimpse of the hooded figure from earlier, his shadowy form looming closer. Panic surged within her, and she quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. The mall, once bustling with life, now seemed hauntingly desolate. The flickering lights cast elongated shadows that danced along the empty corridors, amplifying Sarah's growing sense of dread. She veered down narrow alleys and deserted passages, desperate to shake off her pursuer. But the hooded figure persisted, a menacing silhouette in the darkness. With every step, Sarah's fear intensified. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, and her pulse thundered in her ears. Her mind raced, conjuring terrifying scenarios, each more gruesome than the last. She stumbled and glanced over her shoulder, her eyes widening in horror as the hooded figure closed the distance between them. In a last-ditch attempt to escape, Sarah dashed towards the emergency exit, her trembling hands fumbling with the latch. The door swung open with a creak, and she burst into the cool night air, her lungs heaving with exertion. She sprinted across the empty parking lot, her feet pounding against the asphalt. But the sound of pursuit echoed behind her. A blood-curdling scream tore through the silence as Sarah felt a vice-like grip seize her shoulder. She twisted around to confront her assailant, but before she could react, a glint of steel flashed in the moonlight. Pain exploded through her body as a blade plunged into her abdomen, ripping a strangled cry from her lips. Gasping for breath, Sarah collapsed to the ground, her vision swimming in a haze of agony. The hooded figure loomed over her, his face concealed by the shadows, as he delivered the final blow. Darkness enveloped her, and the world faded into oblivion. The next morning, the headline screamed of a gruesome Black Friday tragedy. A young woman found brutally murdered in the mall's parking lot. Panic swept through the city as rumors of a deranged serial killer among the shoppers spread like wildfire. The mall, once a bustling hub of consumerism, now bore witness to unspeakable horror. Story 2. The anticipation of Black Friday hung thick in the air like an impending storm. Crowds congregated outside the mall gates, their murmurs forming a symphony of excitement as they eagerly awaited the doors to swing open. Among them was Mia, a young woman with a passion for bargain hunting. The throng surged forward as the clock struck midnight, flooding the mall with a sea of shoppers. Mia navigated through the chaos, her eyes alight with the promise of irresistible deals. But amidst the frenzy, a peculiar unease nestled in the pit of her stomach, a feeling she couldn't shake. As the night wore on, the mall teemed with life, its corridors packed with eager consumers. The air buzzed with energy, the scent of new merchandise mingling with the cacophony of voices. But amidst the hustle and bustle, something sinister lurked in the shadows. Reports began to surface, whispers among the crowd of people disappearing without a trace. At first it was dismissed as hearsay, a figment of overactive imaginations. But as the night deepened, the disappearances became undeniable. Shoppers vanished into thin air, leaving behind empty spaces in the crowded aisles. Mia noticed the disconcerting absence of familiar faces. Friends she had seen moments ago had vanished without a trace. Panic flickered in her chest, but she brushed it off as paranoia, focusing on navigating through the swarming masses. In the midst of the chaos, a soul-chilling sight caught her eye. A man stood at the far end of an empty corridor, his silhouette obscured by the weird lighting. He watched, unmoving, his gaze fixed on the shoppers. His presence sent a cold feeling down Mia's back, but when she blinked, he was gone. Fear gnawed at her insides, but when Mia tried to alert others, she was met with incredulous stares or dismissive shrugs. No one believed her, not even her boyfriend Alex, who brushed off her concerns as Black Friday hysteria. As the night dragged on, the mall grew quiet. The once bustling corridors now echoed with hollow emptiness. Stores that had teemed with shoppers were now deserted, their shelves abandoned, goods forgotten in the haste of vanishing customers. Mia's unease intensified, her steps faltering as she wandered through the desolate passages. She felt watched, followed by an unseen presence that slithered just beyond her line of sight. She called out for Alex, but her voice echoed into an abyss of silence. A chilling realization struck when she stumbled upon a small enclave tucked away in a remote corner of the mall. There, amidst discarded shopping bags and forgotten goods, lay a trail of personal belongings. Phones, purses, jackets, all abandoned as if their owners had evaporated into the night. Panic surged through Mia's veins as she retraced her steps, her heart racing in terror. The once familiar maze of the mall now felt like a labyrinth of dread. Shadows danced at the corners of her vision, whispering of an impending doom. Frantic, she rushed towards the exit, praying for an escape from this nightmare. But as she reached the door, a bone-chilling silence enveloped her. The world seemed to freeze as she turned around, and standing before her was the man she had seen earlier, his presence suffocating. Before Mia could react, a vortex of darkness consumed her. Her screams echoed through the empty halls as she vanished into the abyss, leaving behind only a haunting emptiness. The following day, the mall remained deserted, a ghostly monument to the inexplicable events of that Black Friday night. No trace of the missing shoppers was ever found. Rumors circulated, tales of a malevolent force lurking within the mall's walls, a sinister entity preying on the frenzied crowds. And as time passed, the mall was sealed off. Story 3. Amidst the annual frenzy of Black Friday, the bustling shopping center became a maze of fluorescent lights and echoing chatter. Among the throng of eager shoppers was Emma, a young woman eagerly browsing the sales, her heart racing with anticipation for the best deals of the year. As she weaved through the crowded aisles, Emma couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling prickling the back of her neck. The relentless bustle seemed suffocating, and a sense of foreboding settled within her. She brushed it off as pre-shopping jitters, attributing it to the frenetic atmosphere of the day. Yet as the hours passed, her unease deepened. Each time she glanced over her shoulder, a fleeting shadow seemed to dart behind racks of clothes or vanish into the crowd. She attributed it to tiredness, the disorienting buzz of the packed mall, dismissing her paranoia as mere figments of a fatigued mind. As she waited in the long queues at various stores, Emma caught glimpses of the same individuals nearby. An elderly man with piercing eyes, a young woman in a red coat, and a figure obscured by a hood. Their presence seemed unnervingly persistent, and their gazes felt intrusive, burning into her soul. Attempting to shake off her growing anxiety, Emma hurriedly continued her shopping spree. But as she navigated the labyrinthine paths of the shopping center, the feeling of being watched intensified. Whispers of voices that seemed too close yet too far echoed around her, instilling a profound sense of dread. Despite her efforts to rationalize, Emma's heartbeat quickened with each step, a relentless drumming in her chest. Her mind played tricks on her, conjuring shadows that slithered at the edges of her vision. She found herself glancing over her shoulder incessantly, catching fleeting glimpses of figures that seemed to vanish into thin air. Eventually, Emma sought solace in the restroom, hoping a moment of respite might quell her escalating fear. The restroom was empty, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the tiled floor. She splashed water on her face, attempting to regain composure, but a movement in the mirror caught her attention. A shadowy figure lurking behind the stalls. Panic surged through her veins and Emma bolted out of the restroom, her breath shallow and erratic. She felt a cold sweat trickling down her neck as she raced through the maze of corridors, seeking an exit from this suffocating nightmare. The world seemed to close in around her as she darted between aisles, desperate to escape the relentless feeling of being hunted. She tried to call her boyfriend, but the network was inexplicably jammed. No one responded to her frantic cries for help as the mall's usual buzz dissolved into an horrific silence. Determination to escape consumed her, but no matter which direction she turned, she found herself back in the same junction of corridors. The figures she had glimpsed earlier appeared and vanished like phantoms, their faces obscured, yet their eyes bore into her soul. With trembling hands and a racing heart, Emma stumbled upon a service door. Hope surged within her, but as she reached for the handle, the lights flickered, and a haunting silence descended. She turned, and there, looming in the dark corridor, stood the silhouettes of the figures, their eyes gleaming with an unsettling hunger. Frozen in terror, Emma felt a hand grasp her shoulder, a cold, clammy touch that made her blood freeze. She turned to face her assailant, only to be met with an abyss of darkness engulfing her. The last thing Emma felt was a suffocating embrace of shadows before she vanished into the abyss, leaving behind only a haunting emptiness. Story 4. The countdown to Black Friday had begun, and the anticipation hung thick in the air. Shoppers eagerly planned their strategies for snagging the best deals, and stores were adorned with enticing banners proclaiming massive discounts. Among the throngs of excited shoppers was Max, a young man with an insatiable hunger for bargains. He had mapped out his route through the shopping center, determined to make the most of the sales and emerge victorious. As the clock struck midnight, the doors of the mall flung open and a surge of eager consumers flooded in. Max plunged into the chaos, darting from store to store, his eyes scanning for the best deals. But amidst the hustle and bustle, a sense of unease crept over him. The crowded corridors felt suffocating, and the continuous hum of chatter seemed almost deafening. Max pushed the feeling aside, attributing it to the frenzied atmosphere of Black Friday. As the night progressed, the shopping center thrived with life. The aisles teemed with enthusiastic shoppers, their arms laden with discounted goods. But amidst the excitement, Max noticed something unsettling. A peculiar figure lurking among the crowd, its features obscured by a hood. The figure appeared intermittently, always at the edge of Max's vision. He tried to dismiss it as a trick of the bustling crowd, but a prickling sensation at the back of his neck refused to fade. He attempted to alert a security guard, but the figure vanished whenever Max sought assistance. Dismissed as a paranoid shopper in the midst of the Black Friday chaos, Max's concerns were met with indifferent shrugs and impatient glances. As the hours ticked by, the once exhilarating atmosphere grew oppressive. Max's movements became frantic, his eyes darting around, trying to catch another glimpse of the mysterious figure. The persistent feeling of being watched made him freeze up. In his haste to escape the perceived stalker, Max found himself lost in the labyrinthine corridors of the mall. The deafening noise of excited shoppers had given way to a sinister silence, broken only by the faint echo of his own footsteps. Desperation clawed at him as he frantically searched for an exit. The deserted passageways seemed to stretch endlessly, and the disorienting maze left him feeling trapped. He tried calling for help, but his voice echoed into a void of emptiness. A sense of impending doom loomed over Max as he stumbled upon a small corridor, its flickering lights casting unsettling shadows. There, standing at the far end, was the hooded figure. It remained motionless, its presence chilling Max to the bone. Heart-pounding, Max cautiously approached, his voice trembling as he demanded answers. But as he drew closer, the figure turned, revealing a haunting emptiness where its face should have been. A featureless void that sent a surge of terror through Max's veins. Before he could react, darkness enveloped him, swallowing him whole. The last thing he felt was an icy grip wrapping around him, pulling him into an abyss of nothingness.